Ms. Jennifer Brooks.
Yes, good morning. I am Jennifer Brooks, and I want to thank you all for your hard work. I've written to you since the Transportation Committee's work session on the Shared Micromobility Program. I have serious misgivings, as I mentioned at that meeting. And the big problem I see is data. So if you think of the whole program as it's been operating since they first deployed in the city, all of the data has been collected, analyzed, reported by the vendors. So it's like if President Shipman was my teacher and I did an assignment and I turned it in and I said, here you go. I've done the work and I've graded myself and I've got an A+. So I just would like for you to please look at it all, check and see if you're being given accurate information about the way the program is operating now, and please assure me that there will be improvements. And really, in my neighborhood, it doesn't work well. So the will has to be there to make it successful. I'm open and willing to help you achieve that, and I just think we have to go into it with questions and not answers right now to figure out what do we need to do to make it successful. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our last speaker will be Mr. Ken Robley. As he approached, we have been joined by Councilmember Antonio Lewis.
Good morning. I have old business here. This has already been passed. But I have some questions because nobody asked any questions when these were passed. 24-0-1335. $227,457,524 for various projects at the airport. Are you getting a list of these projects? Or is this just throwing out the money and hope that it lands on something? Then there's 24R 57 or 3751 for $20,925,077. Construction management services. I notice Rohit Fox's name is on this list. They were also on a list of phony companies that were getting $48 million a couple years ago, which passed without any questions. They also put the streets in the vicinity of the City Hall here, and I noticed they left a pothole in the crosswalk at Martin Luther King and Pryor Street. They also didn't level all the sewer covers. Should these people be on the list to get $20 million for management services they can't even put a street in? Then there's can't read my own writing here. 24R3752 for $23,975,154 for contractor services. That's a lot of money for contractor services. What are they doing for that money? And then there's 24R 3753, $25,723,000 and 25,723,003 for program management support services. What is that? No questions were asked on any of these. Now we got a new airport general manager, I believe. It would be very good if you asked her a few questions. It would show that you care about what's going on at the airport. And it would put her on her toes that you people are serious about this job. Oh, I'm over. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. I believe that brings us to the end of our public comment, which takes us to presentation reports and updates. We have our Atlanta Department of Transportation, Commissioner Cavendish.
Good morning, Council. It's good to see everyone again. Solomon Cavaness, Atlanta Department of Transportation Commissioner. I am here to present our quarterly report. This is a follow-up to our May budget hearing, which we held in these chambers. And let me get started. So, the mission of Atlanta Department of Transportation is to design, deliver, and maintain an efficient multimodal transportation system. Today, I'm going to go through our programs and initiatives, highlights within ATL DOT over the last quarter or 2 quarters since we weren't able to have this presentation until now. Capital Delivery Program, our State of Good Repair, public engagement events, and our upcoming construction program. So I'll start with our Vision Zero program. We launched our Vision Zero action plan back in April of this year. That plan included a number of strategies of which we've already been working over the last couple of years since activating actions Vision Zero within the city. And we are making progress on LPIs, or leading pedestrian intervals, center line hardening, daylighting, and multi-mobility corrals, micro-mobility corrals. And I am pleased to announce that, unfortunately, we still do have fatalities within the city, but we're down over this time last year. So good to report that fatalities are down in the city, and we hope to, by way of the data, have our city at 0 by year 2040. So I'll speak to Atlanta Streets Alive. It's been a very successful run with Atlanta Streets Alive. We had our latest iteration of the program where we closed Peachtree Street for pedestrians, bicyclists, and businesses within the city. The last event was held on Father's Day, and we had a considerable turnout. Thereabouts 15,000 folks came out, so that's consistent with other events. And just a heads up, and you'll be seeing this come across your desk soon. In the fall, we have 3 dates that we're looking forward to proposing after we do our due diligence on RDA. We're bringing it to the south side from White over to Grant Park. So we're looking forward to Atlanta Streets Alive and changing that location in the fall, 3 dates in the fall. So our shared micromobility highlights, I'll speak to briefly. We've had 2.4 million trips in 2023, and that's compared to 1.6 million in 22. However, we are up 17% in terms of ridership so far this year, and we are considered a top 10 city in the country. Actually, per capita, we're top 5 in terms of use of micromobility devices within the city. So we're making ongoing and consistent improvements for accommodating micromobility in the city with 5 bike and scooter corrals in the first quarter and second quarter, and we're going to keep that trend moving for micromobility corrals for parking on the street. That's just a picture of one of our corrals. So I'll speak to our Safe Routes to School program. It's an ongoing program. We've invested considerable attention, energy, staff time into Safe Routes to School. Hollis Innovation Academy was a focus, and planning is going on currently. We are also looking at walk and roll school events we've had throughout the city, and we have a list here of 5 locations that we focused on. I'll give brief highlights related to Q1 and Q2 of this year since our budget briefing. Reconnecting Communities program sponsored by USDOT. Atlanta received the highest grant award in history of 157 million or so for the Stitch Phase 1 implementation. We've launched again our Vision Zero program and conducted a media tour. We have our RAISE grant award that recently came in for the Westside Thrive project. And going back to the micromobility corrals, we have been awarded over $12,000 for the AARP Community Challenge Grant, which is an exciting grant award we received. I'll jump over to capital delivery. In our capital delivery program, this just provides you numbers as to where the progress we've made relative to our program. We've shared the status of our projects by way of a council district as a follow-up to our budget hearing. And we are making considerable progress with our Renew Atlanta delivery and moving Atlanta forward. Many of those projects are in our planning and scoping phase. We anticipate moving into engineering and design so that we can get these projects in procurement and out on the street for construction as soon as possible. So I'll speak to that a bit later in the presentation. We have a number of capital improvement projects that we're working with our community improvement districts to help us deliver on, and a series of other projects throughout the city. So I'll jump quickly to our resurfacing overview. We have 61 streets resurfaced over the last 2 quarters. We closed out our LMIG 2021 program. We have ADA ramps as part of that program. We completed 30 as part of the LMIG 2021 program, and about 62 or so miles have been resurfaced. I will mention that whenever possible, we include bike lanes and bike lane facility or bike facility improvements within our resurfacing program, and we've had just generally about 4 miles of improvements over the last couple quarters for bike lanes, which shows how serious we are about bike accessibility throughout the city. I'll highlight a couple projects. Cheshire Bridge over CSX, that was unfortunate rehabilitation of a bridge due to an encampment situation. The bridge, a portion of the bridge was damaged due to a fire, and that was rehabilitated and completed in Q2 of this year. So that's something we really are happy to announce and put behind us. The DeKalb Avenue safety improvements, we are buttoning up that program with with stormwater improvements, whereby we are leveling all the storm grates along the corridor to make the rideability better. And I'll speak briefly to Howell Mill Complete Streets. Our Howell Mill Complete Streets project is ongoing. We're doing a number of sidewalk, ADA improvements, bike facility, dedicated bike lane improvements, and pedestrian sidewalk improvements along the corridor. This project will include also signal improvements. The Light Up the Night program with Georgia Power has kicked off its phase 4. Pleased to announce that we have about 3,000 lights that have been converted so far. That's 3,000 of the 15,000 we're looking to improve throughout the city for safety and visibility. That program is ongoing, and it will augment the already thereabouts 20,000 lights that we've done over the last 2 years. Our service requests in the last couple quarters, we had thereabouts 8,100 or so requests come in from ATL 311. This is compared to thereabouts 7,000 over the same period last year. And we've been addressing our backlog, and as you see, we've resolved considerable number of our pothole requests, traffic signal repairs, and we focus our attention on the priority needs and what we've seen through the data for the concerns from our public. We've been busy in the community. We've had considerable community events. I'll just highlight a few here. We had back in Q1 our Cascade Road community event, of which we've been back out in the community and had our June community engagement event for the Cascade Road Complete Streets project. We've been working with Department of City Planning for the Plan A update, and also a street renaming for Dr. Thomas Cole Jr. over the Atlanta University Center back in March. Some highlights related to program starts. Again, we had the Light Up the Night Phase 4 update and kickoff over in District 11. We've also broke ground on the J.E. Lowry Complete Streets project, which we're looking forward to getting that project moving. Atlanta Streets Alive, I mentioned, has been an ongoing program, very successful. Cortland and Piedmont Safe Streets project, community engagement discussion was held back in June, and the Buckhead Transportation Task Force meeting, that's been ongoing. A series of about 7 meetings have been happening up in Buckhead and have been very productive. So I mentioned the Cascade Road Complete Streets project. We had, again, a June 25th meeting with Councilmember Overstreet. So some things we can look forward to. So our indefinite delivery, indefinite quantities program, where we have a number of on-calls supporting sidewalk improvements, pavement improvements throughout the city, is about to start. We're looking forward to getting that going as soon as possible. Our Moores Mill, Howell Mill, West Wesley intersection improvements will start here next quarter. Our unpaved roads program will kick off very soon. West Peachtree Street and Spring Street Complete Streets. We're looking forward to getting that moving with Midtown Alliance. Lennox Road corridor improvements with the Buckhead CID, and we've been coordinating with council with you about our forthcoming LMIG strategy. So those are just some of the upcoming projects and things we're looking forward to. A couple of things I'd like to mention following up from our budget hearing. We are advancing our human capital investment with project managers. We committed to bringing on an additional 5 project managers in this quarter. So we have 23 currently, and we're getting those numbers up to 28 as soon as possible. We have seen that it's made a considerable difference in our delivery and moving the program forward with the numbers of project managers we've brought on. We know that's been a concern for council. We also, of the 24 active hires that we're pursuing, we are thereabouts 14 focused on our capital program and delivery to move our capital program along, which are in capital administration and helping us with procurement. We're also looking forward to advancing our personnel paper submission and approvals this next quarter so that we can bring on the needed staff and resources within the department. We're working with each of you on various projects, various initiatives, and with that, I will take questions, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before we get into questions, just definitely like to recognize the president. We've been joined by Councilwoman Overstreet, as well as this list grow. We was able to pre-sale speaking tickets. Councilmember Councilmember Hillis actually is first.
Thank you, Chairman Amos. Thank you, Commissioner Cavanis, for the presentation. So first, starting off with some good news, just want to recognize and congratulate on the receipt of the RAISE grant for the $60 million project, which I know Upper West Side CID worked very hard to put that package together and help us submit it with me and Councilmember Amos, the legislation on that. So looking forward to seeing that project, which will connect Georgia Tech with Westside Park with multimodal, better sidewalks, bike lanes, et cetera, and resurfacing some very rough streets. Last night, I was at a community meeting. I was actually with the mayor's housing team, and it was with 4 different neighborhoods in the heart of my district, over 2 MPUs, MPUG and MPUJ. And we were there to talk about what would be a very transformative housing project, reactivating the old gun club park, which the city has left vacant for something like 25 plus years. But when we got into questions and concerns, the number one issue that every person at that meeting had, and there were about 20 people there from the various neighborhoods and MPUs, it wasn't housing, it was the condition of our streets. How is the city going to continue to grow and expand when we don't even take care of our streets and other infrastructure too? Sidewalks, water lines, thankfully. Most of my district was not affected by water outage a while ago, or that might have been the number one issue, or a close number 2. But that was the general feedback, and that's when I have community meetings. That's what I get is, why are we not resurfacing streets? Why has my street not been touched in 30 plus years? And I just have to say I feel you. And you know very well that has been a rallying call for me that we need to put more resources into street resurfacing yearly, because we can't continue to just simply rely on LMIG, local maintenance improvement grants we get from the state, which is a measly, and CIDs, $5 million, $6 million a year. I know we got an additional pot of funding this year, the LRA. That's great. But the only reason we are allocating almost $24 million this year is because the previous administration didn't do any resurfacing for 2 years, and we're playing catch up. But getting back to, after this year, what's the plan going forward? Because just on this specific issue, and I, as you know, have submitted my list, my maps to ATO DOT over a year ago, because I wanted to see, given we are behind, this is how I want to spend our LMIG 22, 23, 24 money. Oh, and I'm a council member who put forward $1 million for moving Atlanta forward to address resurfacing in my district. And not of this year's budget, but at last year's budget, I believe every one of us signed on to a document that allocated $12 million more towards resurfacing, $1 million per council district, and submitted those lists, again, over or close to a year ago. And I know we had a meeting about this earlier this week, but up until then had received no feedback about that. And so when I constructed my list, I would looked at the history and get about 15,000 lane feet per council district for each LMIG. About 3 lane miles, about 1.5 center line miles if you're looking at an average 2-lane road. So given all of that funding, the 24 million plus the 2 million that I know I have allocated, other council members at least have $1 million if they're not even going to commit their MAF dollars. And I come up with, I should be able to fund 12 center lane miles of resurfacing in District 9. And then while I was gone, I wasn't here to be able to vote for the budget. A condition came up about the LMIG program, and we have put, it doesn't give a total, and unfortunately, as I brought up in the meeting, it doesn't give a lane mile, because I know some of these are 3-4 lane roads. But it just seems like this is a whole lot of money. We're giving a whole lot more money because we're behind and we have some to put forward, but we're getting a lot less. So I think I'm not speaking just for all of us up here and all of my colleagues that are on this committee, but I'm speaking for all of Atlanta, because this is what I consistently hear in meetings, is the condition of our streets is horrid. I have a map of my district, and this is just the red and the orange, just the very poor and the poor street conditions, and there are a lot of them. And I don't remember the exact percentage because and I don't know it would matter now because our pavement condition index scoring is 5+ years old at this point. But it's me saying a whole lot to try to get some feedback as, I know this plan. I don't know that it's what it should be, but what is the plan to fund and expand resurfacing going forward? And I also understand, why certain streets are on here and they take more money because we need to address our arterials and collectors, et cetera. But we can't go address an arterial and collector and tell someone who's lived on their street for 30+ years and never seen it resurfaced that, well, we're not worried about you because that's who vote for us. So what's your feedback on that?
Yeah. So obviously, the condition of our infrastructure has been a focus in part of impetus for the Move Atlanta Forward investment. That program focuses more on some of the larger capital investments. However, our resurfacing is not necessarily the main focus for those dollars. So what we've relied on has been the monies from the state, and the strategy we have focused our more recent attention on is getting those pavement indexes updated, but given the allocated dollars from the state, make sure that we get the biggest bang for our buck instead of doing short sections, take advantage of that money and use it for at least 1.5 miles or mile corridors on our secondary and primary roadways. More recently, we've initiated conversations with our state and federal partners to see what federal dollars we can bring home, working with ARC because there is considerable money coming down from federal government. So you spoke of the RAISE grant. That's one example of Atlanta being positioned to bring home federal dollars for these type of improvements. So there is a discussion coming up with our MPOs, and we have had ongoing conversations with the state about changing our formula relative to improving some of the major corridors throughout the city. So that is a long way of saying we're shifting our focus on using dollars from our partners, whereby the priorities for the city have been for some of the larger capital improvements within our Renew and Move Atlanta Forward program. So that will be an ongoing conversation with council to see if we can garner support with our partners and also with our folks up in Washington to see if we can take advantage of all the monies that are coming down from the bipartisan infrastructure law.
Yeah, just some quick feedback on that. I certainly understand trying to get the state and GDOT to increase their LMIG allocation because maintenance is literally in the name of the program, but we shouldn't have to go to, especially the feds, just to maintain our infrastructure that we already have. I can understand, this Upper West Side CID project that's bringing new infrastructure, new bike lanes, et cetera. But just, that isn't a good, I guess, plan to have to go to. Well, and I know this is not your fault. This is not anybody up here's fault. I mean, this has been an issue for decades that people just put, and it's not just DOT. It's, as you know, watershed as well. People just kick the can down the road and hit the microphone and down the road, and here we are. But now we have to solve it.
Yeah, and I will just bring context to why the strategy of working with our partners is so important at this time in our history. The costs of infrastructure repairs and maintaining our infrastructure have gone up considerably, especially since COVID. The cost of doing business with the contracting community, especially given how competitive the market is for getting contractors to do work with us, has been a challenge. So I hear where you're coming from. We shouldn't have to, however, this is a trend that's happening around the country because of the costs of maintaining our infrastructure, and it speaks to some of not maintaining it over time. So I understand the concerns.
Right, moving on from resurfacing, one request that I believe was in the goals and objectives, and I've seen it inserted in here before, I thought, but it was requested that you provide, and you've certainly provided the raw number and how many you've gotten completed, but I would like to see some SLA metrics. So is that something you can get to
Yes.
this committee by
Yes,
the end of the week?
I have those numbers. I can
Okay.
get those to you ASAP.
How is the IDIQ program going to help your department, and when will it start?
Yeah, so the IDIQ program is not uncommon program used by agencies such that we can address some of our maintenance issues. You brought up resurfacing and the state of our infrastructure. It allows us to have a bundle of contractors available to us to address some of our maintenance challenges. Because of how the volume of issues that we've seen, we find it more efficient to go to our contracting community and get some of those sidewalks implemented and repaired, to take care of what we call spot repairs, which are sections that are longer than 50 feet, whereby our in-house forces take care of potholes and short sections. But it's just a very efficient and smart approach to getting work done. So we're working with, it's been 5 contractors who have been qualified to get work done as soon as possible. So
Just generally, some of the projects outlined in here, it's good to see the pictures and the photos and see work finally being done on some of these projects, but if we could just have a little bit more information regarding those so we can pass those on to our constituents. One that comes to mind, this Howell Mill, Complete Streets, and there's some other projects that have pictures in here, but just the timelines, like what is the percentage of completion, what is the projected project timeline on those projects. And then another request on specific to the resurfacing overview. It states in there that 62.83 lane miles were resurfaced, which again, only about 2.6 miles per council district if you go by center lane miles. What was the total funding to get that 62.83 mile figure? So we can do some math.
yeah. If you would allow me to share that number with you.
Yeah, you don't have to have it right now.
Right. If you'd allow me to share that number with you, because there are calculations that need to be done, and we can help you understand how we came up with that total. There was only budgeted there about $6 million, but we took from our internal budget to augment that funding to get it done. So I can definitely share that information with you.
Thank you. Another issue I've been contacted quite a bit, and we spoke about this as well, but the delays in permitting, and you all handle lane closure, street closure permits, and I hear from lots of contractors, including large contractors that do work for the city and the state, where it's taking 30+ days to get one of those permits. Is that, and my understanding is a manpower issue. Is that something we're actively working on? Where are we with filling those positions, raising that pay if need be, and so forth?
Yeah, so as you know, we have focused our attention on capital hiring, but also our permitting hiring to include inspectors and engineers. We've been working with HR to look at market rates so that we can make those positions more attractive. But we've also, as part of our systems analysis and process improvements review, have worked with DCP and look at their software program. And we've just actually migrated to their software so that we have more efficient process from application for buildings and infrastructure and improvements going into the same software system. So that's a process improvement we've just recently undergone, and the hiring to get more staff to handle the capacity or the volume that's coming in has been a focus of ours over the last quarter.
But until we fill in-house, we're working on bringing in maybe some contractors or something similar to what DCP did.
Yes, we've been talking to DCP about using their on-call contractors who are augmented staff, but we've also used our internal consultants to help us with processing some of the permits.
Okay, my last question, just in general about the capital delivery program status. A hot topic of this committee this year has been how few projects, especially looking at the MEF projects, which at this point is, I believe, a 2-year-old program. The previous issues were project managers, et cetera, yet here we are halfway through 2024, and only 3 closeouts, 3 being brought to construction, and 2 currently in procurement, for a total of 8 projects in those 3 categories. And everything is still very front-loaded into the not started planning, scoping, engineering design phases. So how have we made progress since bringing on those project managers and bringing more of these projects to the procurement phase?
Yeah, so I guess the misnomer is that we activated the Moving Atlanta Forward program, and we automatically jumped to getting shovels in the ground. However, the list of projects did not have detailed scoping and engineering that went into developing the projects. So it's very important and incumbent upon the department to make sure that these projects are scoped and engineered so that when we go to construction, we're not running into issues related to utilities and unforeseen challenges. So what you see is the focus on our scoping and engineering of those projects so that when we get the shovels in the ground, we can stick to the estimated schedule and get these projects in and out. Since the project managers have come on, we have increased the numbers in terms of what we've gotten into scoping and engineering, and we've become much more efficient at getting projects engineered and designed so that we can get those into construction. What you'll find is momentum building going into next quarter to move these projects into procurement and construction. It's just that in the first year or so, given the volume of projects, the engineering and scoping of those projects needs to be the heavy focus before we get into construction, because we get into construction and you have a DeKalb Avenue where you're running to all types of utility challenges or unforeseen issues that weren't addressed during the engineering design phase. However, over the next 2 quarters, you'll see thereabouts, you'll see a substantial closeout and completion of projects within our Renew program, which we wanted to make sure that we could sunset. And then some of the project managers and the resources will migrate into more of the projects in Moving Atlanta Forward. But we can still walk and chew gum at the same time and get the entire capital program moving. But when I got here, what we found was there were a number of projects that weren't engineered or scoped well enough to move into construction, which we found in our Renew program. So it's really important that as we commit to a quality Moving Atlanta Forward delivery, all that's in place as we go into building these projects out.
Just a wild card that I noticed out of curiosity. What are the 2 not started programs in the 10-year-old T-SPLOST 1.0 program, Renew Atlanta, that have not moved?
I'll get back to you. There are a couple that will be migrating to canceling because, if I'm not mistaken, it has to do with signalization, and it's attached to other projects. So I'll get specifics for those 2 projects.
I believe Baker Street 2A is one of those.
Which one is that?
Baker Street 2A.
Understood.
I'll confirm.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. Just wanted to start off to say, just really excited to see that Atlanta Streets Alive is coming back to Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard in Southwest Atlanta. I think the last 2 times we tried to do Streets Alive on that corridor, we got heavy torrential downpours, and so we get 3 cracks at the bat this year, and so I'm really excited about that. I will say bringing ASA back to Ralph David Abernathy does highlight some questions and concerns that I've been working through since I've been in office for the last 2.5 years. One is that, been a little disappointed in some of the conversations we've had with GDOT. I know GDOT controls Ralph David Abernathy, essentially West Metropolitan, and their redesign and their Safe Streets initiative for their portion of Ralph David Abernathy isn't going to procurement until, I believe, 2026, 2027. So we're looking at maybe not even until 2028 until they get construction underway and they get shovels in the ground. However, Ralph David Abernathy, Eastern Metropolitan, I know is a city owned right away, and I believe we're putting up something like $5 million as part of moving Atlanta forward to make that into a safe street. And so I know in the past, whenever there have been Atlanta Streets Alive activations, organizations like Propel ATL and others have done work around raising awareness about how can we make this corridor safer. We did that years ago with Cascade, and I'm glad to see that Cascade slowly but surely is moving forward to get that transformation underway. I know the same thing has been done in the past with the Cab Avenue, and I know your department's been working to make those commitments made real. But recognizing that there's some delay in the GDOT portion of Ralph David Abernathy, I would love to see some activity, whether it's design, whether it's community engagement, whether it's just anything tied to showing that there is movement in making Ralph David Abernathy safer, at least on the city side of that. And so I don't know if you have a timeline or any sort of anything I can take back to the community as far as when they can start seeing a public meeting about what's going to happen with Ralph David Abernathy. But that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, especially with ASA returning to that corridor.
So, Councilmember Dozier, thank you for those comments. I will commit to reaching out to GDOT to get a community meeting scheduled so that we can go out and get.
Well, not even the GDOT piece, because we actually have done a couple of those meetings.
Okay,
West
okay.
End CID
Okay.
Through LCI funding has already done redesign work, and we've done community engagement on the West End part of Atlanta, or Ralph David Abernathy on the GDOT portion. It's the city portion that I'm concerned about. So Mechanicsville, I'm sure Councilmember Winston has similar concerns about what's going on in Summerhill and Grant Park. So that portion of the Moving Atlanta Forward allocation. So everything east of, I guess, I kept saying Metropolitan, I guess everything east of Lee Street. Want to get kind
So
of.
what I'll commit to is a one-pager and scheduling a community meeting over the next quarter, if that works for the community and
Okay.
yourself.
I definitely want to start getting that feedback. I know we don't want to go in blind when we start doing the design work. I believe it's currently in design in some phase, but definitely want to get some community input about that. On a similar note, and I definitely hear my colleague Hillis, Councilmember Hillis, loud and clear about the need to move forward and get shovels in the ground with regards to moving Atlanta forward. However, there's some projects that we're still trying to get done as part of Renew Atlanta, which I know we voted on, or voters voted on back in 2015. I'm trying to spend that bucket down. I still have some funding that I inherited from my predecessor. And Councilmember Juan can tell you I've been a big inflation hawk since I've been on council. The dollars we have today aren't the dollars that we have tomorrow. It'll be $1.10 tomorrow. And so specifically the last part of that allocation, I've been looking to do rapid flashing beacons in several parts of my district. One of those is on Ralph David Abernathy in the Mechanicsville community. One of those is on Lee Street, and I know from my understanding that there had been some funding allocated for a rapid flashing beacon on Lee Street. I recognize there's some costs have gone up since that was initially procured. I'm happy to fill that gap to get that moving forward. And then I think I had one on Avon Avenue, but just want to revisit that and try to see what we can do to get that moving forward.
I missed
pun
the last
intended.
street you mentioned.
Lee Street, Ralph David Abernathy, Avon.
Avon,
And I
yep.
might have had one other street. I'll have to go back through my notes.
Yep.
I think the initial list we sent over was back in 2022.
Yep.
But there was at least 4 different locations that we had identified.
If
for
I'm not
those.
mistaken, we've ordered the beacons for Lee Street, and I'll follow up on Avon.
Okay.
That's a citywide request and concern. Suppliers have been a challenge, but yeah, I'll get an update and make sure we move that along as soon as possible.
Okay.
There's also the Lee Street Safe Streets improvements that are coming also, so
Yeah.
we'll get moving on that.
Understood. And I recognize that there's some ongoing redesign work that's happening as part of that. But just the lived experiences of folks in those communities. I mean, one of the things I've shared and reminded my constituents about whenever there's concerns about transportation or housing or anything like that. Part of my West End district has the highest rate, one of the highest rates of residents that don't own a car or have access to a car out of the whole city of Atlanta, Oglethorpe Place and surrounding communities. And so a lot of those folks have to walk across Lee Street to get to the West End MARTA station because they're transit dependent. And I'm thankful that MARTA committed to supporting ATL DOT in the city with adding some bike lane protection, which shortens that gap. But that gap is still there, and cars are still flying down Lee Street. And so the sooner we can get some protective measures in place while the design work is happening around the Lee Street Trail, the better it's going to be for quality of life for constituents over there. On a similar note, I would love to chat with, I know I've shared with the department before, but Industrial White Street, which is, I say Industrial White Street because we have 2 white streets, and one is a residential street and one's an industrial street, but they have the same name. It can be confusing. But the portion that is directly in front of Leon White, I still want to pursue a redesign of that corridor, recognizing that I know Anchorman is moving full steam ahead with some of the amenities they're bringing to the Leon White development, but then they've acquired an adjacent property, and they're looking at 300 units of housing, plus commercial, plus other uses. And I know there's already some safe streets work that has been happening in collaboration with the Beltline over on Ralph David Abernathy, going into the Westview community. And as it exists, the conditions that currently exist on Industrial White Street are just not safe. If you're trying to get from Rose Circle Park, trying to cross the street with your family, as I've done many, many times, and having to play Frogger in my own district is not the greatest feeling in the world. I do want to revisit that, and I'm happy to relook at our Moving Atlanta Forward allocation to support redesign work. I know getting, once we figure out how much the construction cost is going to be, once we get it fully scoped, that's a separate conversation. But at the very least, I want to start trying to show the community that there is a brighter future ahead, and want to work with your department to make sure that happens. So just saying that publicly, but I recognize there's a lot of ATL DOT staff in the room, but that is a high priority for me.
Very exciting time ahead in the district, so here to support.
And then just my last question, a little bit of a different sort of kind of question. In the news a couple of weeks ago, Amtrak announced that they were pursuing additional $30 million in federal funding to support a downtown terminal here in Atlanta. If you might not have been with the city at the time, but a couple of years ago, City Council adopted a resolution that I authored, essentially asking for Amtrak to consider Atlanta for expansion for intercity rail across the region, across the country, as part of their Connect US plan. And it looks like Amtrak is moving full steam ahead on that front. Are either you or anyone on your team or anyone with the administration doing any sort of coordination work to see or identify potential sites for that $30 million investment? I know in the past, we talked about Centennial Yards and the Gold site being a potential site for that. However, they're full steam ahead with their redevelopment work, and I know they just broke ground on their entertainment district. So the clock's ticking in a lot of different places, but I do think it's absolutely critical that this investment get made here in the city of Atlanta, preferably in District 4 and downtown. But regardless, I think it's important that we give more Atlantans more opportunities to get across the broader southeastern region outside. Airport folks cover your ears, but outside of the airport, there needs to be more opportunities to get around the region. But I don't know if there's any coordination work happening from administration or from your office to make sure that we have a site that's going to positively benefit our city for generations. So I just want to throw that out there and see if you have any response to that.
Yeah, for fear of national or local news, my answer is yes. More to come. There have been conversations about viability of that site. However, development of those conversations, I'll give you an update as those move forward. But the short answer, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I yield.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Councilmember Faroki.
Thank you, Chair Amos. Thank you, Commissioner, for the report. As always, I have 4 questions, and I will I'll try my best to be succinct. On the capital delivery program status, Councilmember Hillis asked about the 2 that are not started. Can we get more detail on the projects that are not closed out? Just maybe a list. It can be emailed to us separately, but just what these projects are, kind of for each stage that they're at.
Yeah, following the budget hearing, we sent over a list of projects per district. However, I'll get a list of the projects per category to council so that you have the closeouts and what's in construction and also what's currently in procurement.
Yeah, engineering, design, procurement, and construction would be helpful. And if you can designate the district, in each bucket, that's fine. I think we all know what's in our district, but it's just helpful visually to find it really quickly.
Yep.
On DeKalb Avenue safety improvements, it's nice to see some attention to detail here with leveling the drainage inlet. I'm still getting complaints, however, about the intersection or the road as it crosses over Moreland, whether it's striping or lack of clarity on where the bike facilities start and end. And I believe I was told that there's permanent bike separation materials on order or in the pipeline. Can you give us an update on when that might be ready for installation?
So next quarter, those installations will be complete. However, a project for complete rehabilitation of that intersection is forthcoming.
Great.
So we're really excited about the future of the Moreland Avenue intersection.
Terrific. We'd love to talk more about that when time permits. And then 2 other questions on the upcoming construction, West Peachtree and Spring Street, Complete Street. I noticed there's concrete Jersey barriers have gone up on Spring Street headed south between 17th and 14th to create a protected bike lane. Terrific. I presume that the Complete Street work, because I heard there was a funding shortfall for some of the work through there, but that Complete Street work on Spring Street will include a permanent bike facility, protected bike facility.
Yep. And we've met with Midtown Alliance to see if they can take a lead on those installations. The funding shortfall we have addressed, and we're looking forward to that work starting in the next half of the year, second half of this year. So for all of the constituents that are concerned and that we've heard from, we're going to get busy on Spring Street and West Peachtree Street.
And that's Spring Street from where to where?
We're starting from Peachtree down, or 17th Street south to North Avenue.
Great.
And obviously, considering the incidents, events, and the MARTA location, it's a priority, especially for Midtown.
It's wonderful to hear, and that's a terrific long stretch of protected bike facility that will be heavily used. Very excited to hear that. And the last thing I'll ask is, I had a conversation with one of your deputy commissioners about the permit to close 13th Street between Peachtree and Juniper. Right? It's a short block. It's adjacent to the Dewberry project in Midtown. I've asked the department to consider revoking that permit because the contractor and the developer is not using that space. I'm told, looking into that, but one of the holdups is that the contractor or developer, through their contractor, has damaged the street while they've had it closed. And so if you open it up, it's not the pavement that was there when they first got the closure. And so my concern is that nothing's going to happen because Dewberry has not shown any indication of getting anything done with any timeliness, much less a correcting or redressing public property that they may have damaged. And I'm wondering if you could just comment on how we can expedite this reopening of 13th Street between Peachtree and Juniper.
So to address the damage issue, we have a bond that we can hold against
Great.
the contractor for the improvements. However, I'll make a phone call to Midtown Alliance today to see what the status of the reopening, but also how soon we can get that corridor repaved. The contractor has been out there, so it shouldn't be a mobilization challenge.
So is the permit, is it no longer valid? Is it
No,
sunsetting?
it's still in place.
Still in place?
Yeah.
And is there a,
There's a lever by way of the bond as part of the
Okay.
permit that we can use towards improvements and impacts of the project.
I'll stay on y'all, but glad to see that we're aligned and pulling in the same direction. So, thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next speaker would be Vice Chair, Councilwoman Overstreet.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner. I do have a few questions, although my colleagues really have asked a couple of them. I definitely wanted to know the same on the two projects that were not started. I mean, that too is there for a reason. I would love for you to let us know what that is exactly. And we absolutely need to know which 32 are in engineering and designing, which 16 are being procured. Those are the things that I think that we should know, especially since we're still talking about Renew Atlanta. And because we're talking about, these are taxpayer dollars. That is the priority of the residents, the citizens. This is their skin in the game for the city, right? This is them saying, we want to tax ourselves so that we can play a part in making sure that our streets are safe and mobile, and they're trusting us to make sure that we're delivering that. This is not what the city has decided is important for the city. This is what the taxpayers have decided they'd like to see, and they're trusting us to do this. And I take that very seriously. And so we need this information. Renew has to be closed out. I don't think I'm going to sleep well until it is. Because the citizens have skin in the game. They're not going to let me sleep. And when I can't sleep, that means the city can't sleep. Everyone that's working on these projects, they have to continue to hear from me about it until it's buttoned up, like seriously. So Renew should stay top of mind. We cannot move on until it's completed, for sure. This is a contract with the city, the residents, not an entity, but the people that trust us the most. So that's where I'll start. I'll start with the last meeting that we had, the community meeting. I am so glad that we're having the meetings. I know that during the meetings, I probably am spirited, and it doesn't seem like I'm happy to be there, but I really am. Because just making sure that we are being accountable is important, even if it's not exactly what I want to hear or what I'd like to see. I'm sure that we're doing the right thing by doing it. So thank you to ATL DOT for coming to District 11 again to speak with the citizens that have entrusted us with their cents and dollars and time, because a lot of people really are leaving work early to get there or deciding not to have dinner with their family to be at these meetings because it's important to them too. We've literally disrupted that important corridor to deliver what we say we're going to deliver, and I know that we need to continue to communicate with them and be accountable. So I'm glad that we're doing it. I do thank you for that. But I do feel that at this point, I've done everything in my power to make sure that we're delivering what we're supposed to on the Cascade Complete Streets. I mean, everything. I am, holding those meetings, insisting on them, goodness, emailing, talking specifically to everyone on your team, including you, phone calls, making sure that you're hearing specific details so that we're not doing just a high-level overview of what's missing or what we could be doing or how we can speak with people. We're being very specific about what changes that we can see, like during this detour, which portion should be one way and which should not, and where these cones should be because this is causing disruption. We're being communicative, and I really feel like I'm doing all I can to make sure that we're getting the complete streets completed on Cascade. What else do you think I could do?
So, Councilmember Overstreet, you have gone above and beyond, and we do appreciate it. For those who don't know, the contractor was at the last community meeting, so we appreciate your support. I just encourage you to continue to stay engaged. I know we have a couple meetings upcoming between the administration and the council district to make sure that we're keeping to the timeline. So I only ask that you keep doing what you're doing and being that advocate for us out in the community, because it's made all the difference in the world considering the challenges. So.
Okay. Speaking of timeline, at our meeting, they were not able to give us one for the project, which is alarming, of course. That was alarming for me. So I can only imagine what people were feeling when they heard that we just don't know when this is going to end. And I don't like to leave it like that. What do you think is a good time to get back to me on a timeline? And I asked this 2 weeks ago in public as well, so I'm hoping that you've thought about it for 2 weeks.
Yeah. As I understand it, there's a conversation with the contractor for design changes, and that will provide us a timeline for the overall project. That's currently in the works with our in-house engineer or our deputy commissioner of engineering with the contractor directly. Following that, a timeline will be provided to you, and that should be as early as August, if not sooner. But we'll be in communication with you to make sure that we're on the same page.
Okay, so we can expect a timeline at sometime in August. Okay, I received that. Thank you. Understanding that not only does it cost us time, but this detour, the double detour, and the fact that we're not going to be buttoned up on a timeline at this time is costing us money as well, the city. In that we're having to create programs to help businesses. We're having to literally spend man hours going door to door to these businesses to make sure that they understand what we're offering as a city. And we can't do that for an extended amount of time. It's unreasonable for us to feel that anyone should be put out that long from their business, from their homes, from their day-to-day. This should be top of line. Again, this is Renew, which means 2017. And we turned the dirt on this November 2022. So we have to keep those dates top of mind. We really do. I don't even think that patience is the word that we can use right now. So we have to make sure that this is a priority of the city. Because again, this is their money. This is their skin in the game. This is not our idea. This is the city taxpayers' idea. resurfacing. I have spoken to many of you of ATLDOT about resurfacing for Campbellton Road, and I heard your conversation about the state. And so the state is taking 285 west on Campbellton Road under construction, actually now, because they are in, I don't know, I think we might be in the engineering and design portion of that. Campbellton from 285 moving east hasn't been resurfaced since the 90s. Do you know how many times I've said that out loud to you and your team? Can you just give me a ballpark number? You think 10, 15 times?
No, it's at least been more than 30 times.
Right.
But,
Exactly.
We've heard you.
So, and it's hard for my constituents to believe that I have no control over that. And I have to always speak to them in terms of executive branch, legislative branch, judicial branch, and let them know that you personally are not accountable to me. I don't work for ATLDOT. I work for them. I tell them all the time, I am you, right? So I'm on the legislative side, and you are on the executive side. They don't believe me. They think that you work directly for me. So in that vein, Commissioner, Campbellton Road has not been resurfaced since the 90s. And it's in bad repair. It's not like it's been doing great. It hasn't been resurfaced, and it needs it terribly bad. So I was hoping that there was like this, I don't know, a Christmas nugget or something in here, where I would see something about Campbellton Road, and I didn't. And I don't understand that. So I can't explain to you enough how badly I need Campbellton Road to be resurfaced. And I don't think it should have anything to do with the state at this point. We can't wait 30 more years for the state to be on board for the east side of 285 on Campbellton Road. At some point, we have to take, and we can't wait on more MARTA, because I'm not sure where they are in their process for our bus rapid transit. Campbellton Road needs to be resurfaced. It really does. It's not safe. The stripes aren't clear. The road is bumpy. It needs it. It's had potholes filled. One time they refilled 40 potholes in one day. 40. And they're quickly coming back because it's in bad repair. So it needs a resurfacing. Terribly bad. MARTA, we're moving on to that. I saw on the news where MARTA is working for the transportation hub for DeKalb. I rode vans with you up and down Campbellton to speak about the More MARTA project that we're working on for Campbellton Road. And we actually got out of a van, I believe, right around Greenbrier or so, and we talked about how there's already funding from More MARTA. Again, the taxpayers agreed that they would put skin in the game for More MARTA, half-penny sales tax. And they are expecting that transit hub. The hub has its own own budget line. It's a MARTA Campbellton Greenbrier transit hub. It's funded. It's funded by the taxpayers. And we spoke about it. Have you had another conversation about that with MARTA since that day we got out the van?
So there have been a number of meetings about the overall Campbellton program to include the transit hub.
The transit hub.
To include the transit hub. So there was a more recent conversation about the program phasing and design. So yes, we have spoken about the transit hub. But I think Marta, who has been in contact with you directly, should bring us back out and have that conversation about the status of the training.
Okay, so looks like the cab is having their proper conversations because they're moving on. They're getting their hub. And they're not waiting on anyone to do it. And again, even with MARTA, the taxpayers, the citizens, they again probably think that MARTA is working for me, but they don't. MARTA works directly with the executive branch. The IGA is not with council. It lies in the executive branch. So I am depending on you to speak about Campbellton Road, that transit hub, a resurfacing, to button up Cascade Complete Streets. Like, I'm depending on you. These things have to happen. And finally, I wanted to talk about the last page, the ATL DOT upcoming construction. It says these projects encompass a variety of infrastructure improvements ranging from street enhancements, intersection improvements, sidewalk construction, trail expansions, and road resurfacing efforts. And I don't see any of my major arteries on here at all. Now, I know we may be tucked into some of these acronyms, but Campbellton Road should have been on this page for sure.
Yeah, this is not meant to be a complete list. It's just a highlight list, but
You can't find anything to highlight in Southwest Atlanta.
absolutely, absolutely we can. But yes, we can definitely make sure we get
Okay.
updates.
Okay, and with that, I yield.
Thank you. And our next speaker, District 12, Antonio Lewis.
And I'll pick up where she started on page 17. Councilmember Overstreet and I, we were able to go through this page in particular. So I want to be specific. J.E. Lowry, Complete Street, Northwest. Moore's Mill at Howell Mill, Northwest Midtown. 10th Street Bridge, Midtown. West Peachtree Street, Midtown. Piedmont Road, Capacity, Midtown. Deering Road, Sidewalk, Northwest. Lennox Road, Buckhead. Path West Side, Northwest. Not anything highlights anything south of I-20 on this page. Anything south of I-20 on this page. And so those are the issues that I've been having since I got elected. I think that I ran for office talking about intention. I thought that the South Side was left out intentionally. So I ran for office saying, I'm going to fight and get us some stuff. Looking at this sheet, your upcoming construction, because it's a highlight list, this stuff you want to talk about most. And I'm like, where's Cleveland Avenue Complete Streets? And the reason I reached out to Councilmember Overstreet, because I know how much she feels, how strongly she feels about Campbellton Road. And I knew it wasn't there, so I wanted to make sure she saw it wasn't there. I wanted to make sure she saw it wasn't there. And so my goal is to see, same question she asked, because I asked one question every year during the budget hearing. The question I asked every single department, do you have what you need in order to complete the task? Do you have all the resources you need? And the response is overwhelmingly yes. The administration did a really good job with making sure we have the things we need. So I believe you. And if I see your list, you show me your list, I believe you. And so similar to her, what do I have to do to get something from my area on here? Something. I hope it's not intentional. Because I go to work every day. It's not, the people in my district don't think it's me. They don't think it's me. They're saying, I hope that they're not doing that to you, Councilman Lewis. I hope they're not being intentionally mean to us, Councilman Lewis, because we know you go to work. And so my goal is, what do I have to do? Because I go to work, I'll go some more. Whatever I have to do, I'll go the wee hours of the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning if we have to, What do I have to do to become a priority somehow, some way on the, so I'm nowhere, to be specific, I went through every page in here. District 12 is only on here one time. One time. Entire thing, entire sheet. I went through, it was so specific, I wrote down the council districts on each page. And so if I was to go through that, 10, 11, 12. 10, 11, 12. And so that's my goal. What do I have to do, or what did I do wrong? Or what did I do to not be a part of the entire transportation presentation to the transportation committee that I sit on for 3 years now?
Respectfully, Councilmember, you've done nothing wrong. I will show you how committed we are to District 12, Southwest Atlanta, being a product of certain area within the city. I understand the emotion. I will make sure that any updates, there's no intentionality associated with District 12, and we've been consistently reaching out to make sure that we advocate on behalf of District 12, Cleveland Avenue, ART program, et cetera. So please don't take offense to anything you see here or don't see.
It wouldn't be you. I think you control the department. I think the priority, you report to the administration. I think, and to be specific, District 12 is only on page 15, Capitol View Neighborhood Association Community Meeting. And from that meeting, when I look at this room, I see people in this room who were at that meeting, and the stuff hasn't even been delivered at that meeting. We were talking about sidewalk on Elaine Avenue. That's what we were talking about. There's been no follow-up. And so my goal is to get some priority for us on the south side. We put somebody out of office to get this stuff done. That's what we did. And so my goal is to see what do I have to do to be a part of these papers. When I look at vision, and I apologize to my council members for going on a tangent, because I think I've only asked one question, is what do I need to do to do better, be better? I even went to the Safer School sheet. And I know my office passed legislation with our funding to make our schools safer, make it safer for our kids to go to school. We took our Moving Forward Atlanta money and we specifically said this: how can we get our safe routes for school stuff, Vision Zero, done a little bit faster? And so or maybe it hasn't reached you yet. If you could tell me that the funding, I know it's been a year since we did it, if you haven't reached you yet, how can to me, that meant I should have always been on the safe routes to school page when you come in here. If I gave money from my specific budget to make sure that every time you come in here should have been Crawford Long, Cleveland Avenue, Price Middle, Carver High School, South Atlanta, in which we talk about. So that's my goal, just to be a part of the plans. And if I'm a part of the plans, write it down, right? Write it down. I would like to read it. When you give the presentation, my people watching this. They're watching this. And they say, what page are we on, Councilman Lewis? One sentence on page 15. District 12 needs more than that. Thank you again. I know it ain't you. I know it ain't you. I know it ain't you. Thank you.
Councilmember Juan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to try and move us into a little more hopeful and optimistic space here. I'd like to, the capital delivery program status, the next quarter you present, it would be really helpful to see the progress from quarter to quarter to quarter, because I think that's where the rubber's going to hit the road in terms of all the changes that you're implementing, the acceleration of delivery. That's the most obvious place that we will see that. So I would just ask that chart just, again, show us over time. And I think we're going to see hopefully a very positive note. And I'd like to, quoting from the Hunger Games, like to volunteer as tribute. Monroe Drive Complete Streets, let that be the case study, and let us watch that one be the proof of the changes and reforms that you are implementing, that it's working. So we've got a community meeting tomorrow night. We're going to kick it all off, and then, like I said, next quarter you're going to come back and show us some great numbers. If we needed any motivation on this, I just need to remind everybody that some of these transportation infrastructure projects, I'm seeing in my district where if we don't deliver on that, it's actually impacting the community's appetite for development. density projects that we need. But if folks, kind of back to Councilmember Hillis's point, if folks don't have the confidence that they can access, or it won't impact their quality of life, they're not going to support the vision that the mayor has, you have, and other departments have for our future. And the final thing I'll say is, we were beating up on you a little bit today, but I know this is a message. It's you, planning, water, all intertwined in terms of the future of Atlanta. And so to the extent that you're accelerating and they're accelerating, I think that's what's going to set us up for success. So just let's see what these numbers look like over time, the next time you're up here. And I think hopefully it'll be a really strong, positive story, and it'll prove everything that we're asking you to do, you're delivering on. All right.
Thank you for that.
I yield.
Thank you. I have no questions, just general comment. I was hoping we didn't get what we got today. I don't know who put together your presentation, so no, I say that to say no one would think I'm talking directly about them, but this is blowing smoke. This did not tell us, the only thing that's told us that we are here today where we were 2 quarters ago, and that's nowhere. I have said to you in public and in private, so no one won't think I'm grandstanding this is not what we are expecting from the transportation department. I guarantee you, sir, if you stop making presentations about topics and start making them about how we're moving projects forward, then no one will have these many questions, because if I could sit here and know that District 12 is going to ask you something specific, 10 is going to ask you something specific, 9, 3, if we're asking there should be somebody on your team that knows the pressure points of this committee. And then you bring us a presentation that speaks to none of the pressure points. It's blowing smoke. That's the simplest way I can put it. So please, our next quarterly presentation, can we start with, we have went from 0 to not pass and go on Campbellton Road, and we got pavement going down the strip now. If we could talk about Boone from High Tower to West Lake paving. District 3 have projects on here, but these are not the projects my people calling me about. I appreciate it, but they're not. So if we could just turn the corner, we hear it in your voice, we see the passion on your team, we see what you're trying to build. But as they say, our people are calling us. So therefore, we have to call you. We're here to help. We want to help, but we need a reason to help. So I'm going to be quiet, feedback. We just say Godspeed.
I appreciate your time today.
Okay,
Thank you.
That's it. Any more questions? Okay, thank you. Before we get into the legislative agenda, we have been joined by simply what I can call the future of Atlanta, the interns from our world busiest, most efficient airport. I am not going to do you any injustice by trying to describe the program. I'm going to actually ask Ms. Corliss Davenport to come up and give us a very brief, synopsis. Tell us who we have with us, what they're doing, and then we can get through our meeting, which probably going to take us about 15 minutes. I changed it. Ms. Davenport.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Aviators, what's on your mind? Okay, excellence first. I love that. So good morning again to Chairman Council Member Amos and the esteemed council members of the Transportation Committee. I think I am real good old friends with the majority of you, and because I've been here so long and there's nobody really here that's really new. Maybe Mr. Dozier. I don't know if we have a good relationship. We got to get to know each other a little bit. But I'd like to thank you all for always doing what those young people just said, putting excellence first and always thinking about our future and inviting us to bring that future to hear and see and be a part of how we move Atlanta forward together. Who we have with us are 50 of our 85 youth that are in high schools across the metro Atlanta area, including the city of Atlanta. If you're a city of Atlanta proper, let me see your hands. You go to school in the city of Atlanta, any city of Atlanta school, charter, okay? And we have another 30 that's on an airport trip, so we had to kind of split them up. But I just want to say these youth interviewed, each one of them interviewed, and it was not because you needed a job and wanted to get off the streets, we're bringing you. That's not the culture at the airport. Because we said there are plenty jobs we can find for those that just want to go somewhere just to work. We wanted those that were interested in learning something new, having an experience of something that they haven't had before, and wanted to put their best foot forward where excellence was first on their minds. So this is the cream of the crop. Everybody just didn't get selected, and I tell them that every day, and they show it when they show up every day. And they are representing 32 different business units in the airport, and they are making top dollar. Is it $17 an hour? So I remind them all the time, they're making more than I made when I worked at Six Flags over Georgia. Anybody worked at Six Flags when we were, yeah. So, but they're earning it. They're here, they're taking notes, and they're looking forward to interviewing some of you later when we get back to the old council chambers, because they want to understand a little bit more about what you do and about your districts and how they can get involved. And I think that's it. Is there anything I'm missing? We do professional development. They gave the bank a run for their money when they did a financial literacy course, so they are very sharp, and I just am very proud of them and glad to have them with me, and glad that I have my boss, who is Mr. Michael Smith, back here, who supports youth and everything that we do each and every day. When we ask for it, he first says how much, but then he comes with, if it's for the good of the youth, then let's figure out how to make it happen. And so I just want to publicly thank you for that. Miss Anita, Miss Legislation herself, she has some interns or summer youth herself, and so we thank her. And then we have back there Miss Anika Robertson from Communications from the airport, and she too has some of our summer youth. So we're all here. Brittany, we brought her back, who was the originator. I'm just a 2.0 copy. She ran this program last year and handed it over to me, and so I'm glad that she handed it to me in good hands, and she's still involved, still here, and has her group of youth with her. So thank you for this time, and thank you for inviting us, and we look forward to seeing you all a little bit later.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the young people for attending. That brings us to our legislative agenda, consent agenda, first read.
First reads, item number 1, 24-01391, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise renewal option number 1 for IFBC 1210257, annual contract for maintenance and repair of sidewalks, curbs, driveway aprons, ramps, and associated infrastructure with Knight and Associates Incorporated on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation for a term of 1 year, retroactively effective June 13th, 2024 through June 12th, 2025, in an amount not to exceed $3,000,000 to ratify any services rendered and the payment of any outstanding invoices from June 13th, 2024 through the execution of renewal option number 1, with all contractor work to be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Item number 2, 24-01392, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to accept awarded federal funding in an amount not to exceed $4,376,956.56 for the 15th Street Extension Project to amend the fiscal year 2025 intergovernmental grant fund budget to reflect such accepted funds, to execute any documents necessary for the acceptance, anticipation, appropriation, and implementation of such funds, and for other purposes.
Thank you. That takes us to our regular agenda, second reading.
Yes. Item number 3, 24-01361, An ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the City of Atlanta to waive the competitive procurement source selection provisions contained in Section 2-1187 and 2-1163 of Article 10 Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, as well as any other conflicting code provisions on behalf of the Department of Aviation to ratify services rendered in connection to Agreement FC 9842, Plane Train Tunnel West Extension Phase 1 and 2 Automated People Mover System at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with Alstrom Transport Incorporated, beginning August 30th, 2023, and to retroactively extend the term of the agreement for 40 months from August 30th, 2023 through December 31st, 2026, and for other purposes.
Motion to approve. Motion has been made and second. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Item is favorable. Next item.
Item number 4, 24-01362, an ordinance by Transportation Committee amending the fiscal year 2025 Airport Passenger Facility Charge Fund budget by transferring to and from appropriations in the amount of $41,631,669.00 to provide funding for various projects at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and for other purposes.
Second. Motion has been made and second. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Item is favorable. Move us to our resolutions.
Item number 5, 24R3824, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the Second Amendment to the project management agreement with the Midtown Business Alliance Association Incorporated, doing business as Midtown Alliance, for the 15th Street Extension Project, to extend the time of performance and memorialize additional grant funding for the project and for other purposes.
Motion has been made and second. Please open the vote.
Can we repeat the motion and the seconder, please?
And 1 second.
Thank you. Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Item is favorable. Next item.
Next item, item number 6, 24R3825, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a utility relocation agreement between the City of Atlanta and Georgia Power Company for the removal, relocation, or adjustment of electrical and communication facilities owned by Georgia Power Company for the Brayburn Drive roadway improvements, and to authorize the Chief Financial Officer to remit payment to the Georgia Power Company in an amount not to exceed $26,409.00 on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation and for other purposes.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Item is favorable. Next item.
Next item, item number 7, 24R3826, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing a joint task order fund for fiscal year 2025 in an amount not to exceed $5,489,899.00 for use under 5 architectural and engineering design service contracts for services at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Motion to approve. Motion has been made, second by 1. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Item is favorable. Next item.
Next item, item number 8, 24R3827, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement with Georgia Power Company on behalf of the City of Atlanta Department of Aviation for the installation, operation, and maintenance of Georgia Power electrical equipment proximate to Ramp 20 to serve Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and for other purposes.
Motion to approve. Second by Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Item is favorable. Next item.
Mr. Chair, if there are no objections from the committee, can we take item number 9 and 13 as a block?
Proceed.
Item number 9, 24R3828, a resolution by Transportation Committee on behalf of the Department of Aviation to correct Resolution 23R4423, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on November 6, 2023, and approved per city charter, Section 2-403 on November 15, 2023, by deleting the incorrect funding source for fiscal year 2025 through fiscal year 2027, and replacing it with the correct funding source listed herein. All other parts of the legislation remained unchanged and for other purposes. And item number 13, 24R3832, a resolution by Transportation Committee on behalf of the Department of Aviation to correct Resolution 23R4424, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on November 6, 2023, and approved per city charter, Section 2-403 on November 15, 2023, by deleting the incorrect funding source for fiscal year 2025 through fiscal year 2027, and replacing it with the correct funding source listed herein. All other parts of the legislation remained unchanged and for other purposes.
Second. Item has been made and second. Motion has been made and second. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Items are favorable. Next item.
Next item is item number 10, 24R3829, a resolution by the Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to submit the Federal Aviation Administration a second amendment to the passenger facility charge application number 18 for Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and for other purposes.
Second. Motion has been made and second. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Item is favorable. Next item.
Next item is item number 11, 24R3830, a resolution by the Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to submit the Federal Aviation Administration a new passenger facility charge application number 24 and any necessary amendments thereto at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, there is a request to file this item on behalf of the department.
Motion has been made and second. Second by Dozier. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. The item is filed.
Item is 7 yeas, 0 nays. Item is filed. Next item.
And finally, item number 12, 24R3831, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing a joint task order fund for fiscal year 2025 in an amount not to exceed $4,088,667.00 for use under 2 planning support service contracts for services at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Motion to approve. Second by Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
The item is favorable. That takes us to dual referred items in which I see none, paper held in committee in which I see none. That brings us to the end of our legislative agenda, unless there's any comments, concerns from the committee. Councilmember Overstreet.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated for a successful 71st Boulé. I attended this weekend, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that we are celebrating in Dallas, Texas, 71 Boulés. That's it.
Congratulations. Any more comment, concerns? That being said, stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.